This episode of EMS One-Stop is brought to you by Lexipol, the experts in policy, training, wellness support and grants assistance for first responders and government leaders. To learn more, visit lexipol.com. That's lexipol.com.
If you could see how much work and how this council and every council prior carries out that work in a very apolitical or politically agnostic manner. I mean, no one sits around a table and decides what we're going to do based on, what the politics of it may be. We sit around a table and we make decisions based on what's in the best interest of the EMS industry and the patients that we serve.
We needed one more meeting in February to wrap up this charter and put the bow and, final wrap up on at least 6 more advisories. It was just, it was heartache. All the work, hundreds of hours that went into trying to improve the EMS profession, the industry, just came to a grinding halt. Disappointment, probably be the word I would use.
Hello and welcome to another edition of EMS One-Stop. I'm your host, Rob Lawrence. We're coming to you earlier in the week than we usually do because we have some breaking news. Well, actually, the news broke last week, but it's got a lot of you up in arms, concerned, expressing your pain, your suffering, your hurt on social media. And so we thought we would actually record this episode very, very quickly, get it edited, turned around and delivered to you to start your week. And so we're going to be talking about, of course, NEMSAC, the National EMS Advisory Council, and the letter that went out last week advising the members that they have been dismissed, and essentially the central government is going to turn it over and start again. And, of course, this sent a shockwave of concern around the professional associations, organizations, and individuals. And many people expressed their displeasure and their upset, as I say, on social media. And also there's been a number of stories run with those NEMSAC members. But to get us going today and for this week, and also to really explain what happened, joining me is Dr. Brenden Morshedi, who was the chair-elect, and Brenden Hayden, who's the immediate past chair of NEMSAC. Gentlemen, welcome, and thank you for joining me on this edition of EMS One-Stop.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks for having us.
So, obviously, we've seen the letter. It was either leaked or passed on. We won't go into how it got to the various outlets, but we've seen it. Obviously, you guys have commented in some of our trade magazines, and people have obviously approached you for that. And so we're going to sort of drill down into NEMSAC and what just happened. Also, you may have seen this on social media. There's been a lot of sort of perhaps misunderstanding as to what NEMSAC is. Perhaps an over understanding of the powers, and that you can go knock on the White House door and this sort of stuff. Not quite. So I guess opening, let's just talk about what is NEMSAC, and who wants to kick us off?
Go ahead, Brenden.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can give a pretty good overview. So thanks again for doing this. NEMSAC, the National EMS Advisory Council, is a statutory federal advisory council that is appointed by the Department of Transportation with input from the White House, obviously. And it's made up of 25 members who are industry sector experts that advise the federal government on all things EMS. And the role of NEMSAC is really just that. It's to examine the industry, to look at where there's pain points or areas for development or emergent needs, and to create value-added advisories that are based on research and science, along with letters that focus on more urgent issues, to be able to elevate that information through the federal architecture for adoption, investigation, and action.
Excellent. And so, as you know, I'm an association guy. But so how does NEMSAC differ from, let's be honest, the alphabet soup of national associations that we have going on out there?
Yeah, so NEMSAC is, because it's a FACA, or a Federal Advisory Council, it's appointed under statute, but from Congress. So it had to have, a federal start, if you will. And it doesn't answer to any other organization other than the federal government. We take input from all of these organizations, and this council in the past 2 years has been very welcoming of comments, positions, ideas that have come from our industry trade partners and key organizations like the National Association of EMTs, National Registry of EMTs, AAA, International Association of Fire Chiefs, International Association of Firefighters, and others. So we basically speak specifically to the federal government, and we are the only organization that by charter is designed to do that within EMS.
With the council here, we take our opinions from those professional associations. What's the issues that's facing them? We try to be that voice. We go directly to the executive branch, whereas traditionally those associations and professional organizations, through lobbying efforts, focus their efforts on the legislative branch. So we're the voice to the executive branch of the government.
Excellent. And again, one of the things that I've always contended, again, as I said, I'm the association guy, and you've been working sort of internally, is that FICEMS and the like are briefing up the middle, and as you say, you have access to the executive, and then we have lobbyists, paid lobbyists, and indeed ourselves going to our locally elected officials, briefing and lobbying around the outside. And theoretically, if you're doing your job and we're doing ours, we should meet somewhere in the middle or somewhere at the top in the middle with some great outcomes for EMS. And so we need each other in order to do what we're doing. You can either agree or disagree with that, but that's certainly how I've seen things over the years.
Totally agree. Yeah.
So in terms of, and again, I just want to drill down into a couple of points though. So you are political appointees, and of course this perhaps has been one of the undoings in the last week, that politically they've unappointed you as opposed to being political appointees, but you're not all appointed at once, are you? There is a process and a sort of time period in which you serve, and of course not everybody comes on at once, not everybody goes off at once, etc. How does that work?
Brenden, why don't you take that?
Yeah, our charter is renewed for a 2-year period at a time, usually comes around April. And the membership, the 25 members, you're appointed for a 2-year term. You can opt in for a second 2-year term, but then you must term out after 2 consecutive terms or 4 years. So the way that the council's been comprised since 2007, historically now every 2 years, you have about half the council that rotates off. And so there's been that kind of continuity, if you will, where you have half the council that remains to continue the work of the previous term, to onboard the new members, get them up to speed much quicker, and be much more efficient with the work. What's different about this time is all 25 members, with whenever the next iteration of the council is going to be, are going to be brand new with no continuity whatsoever.
And actually, if we can, we'll talk about the continuity a little bit later, because obviously, yes, there's going to be a challenge and a task there to, pick up the pieces. Because again, you guys had to go through a process where you applied, where you were interviewed, and then you were selected, and then you were appointed. And so it's not a case of apply on Monday and in the job by the Friday. So there is going to be going forward, there's going to be a process to seat people, and that may not necessarily happen immediately. In fact, I suspect it's not going to happen immediately. And so, that's something that we're probably all watching. In terms of, the you and your 25 people and those that have gone before, obviously a lot of work's gone in. And I know from Dr. Morshedi talking to you regularly, the amount of work. And actually, I've been one of those people, every time there's been a NEMSAC, I've been watching you closely on camera and taking notes, indeed to report back to my own association, because one of my roles is to watch you and tell my association what you were doing. So, I spent a lot of time watching you all on the Zoom screen as you're having your meetings. And so I have a grand sort of overview of what you're up to, but just describe for us some of the work products and some of the discussion and some of the subcommittees, and therefore the complexity of what NEMSAC is.
Yeah, there's a tremendous amount of work that happens. While we meet 4 times a year in person in DC for 2 days, there are ongoing committees that meet every single month. Each NEMSAC member is on at least 2 subcommittees. And those subcommittees, there's preparedness and planning. There's and Brenden, you can probably throw these out because you have the list probably in front of you ready to go.
They're based on the EMS Agenda 2050 category. So there's adaptability and innovation, equitable patient care, integration and technology, preparedness and education, professional safety, and sustainability and efficiency are our 6 subcommittees.
Yeah, and each of those subcommittees is designed by nature to produce advisories and letters. And the letters tend to speak to more urgent issues. The advisories are much more in-depth issues that require a huge degree of research. To prepare these and take them up through a tract. And that there's a 4-step process, if you will, that everything has to go through that takes months in between. So it literally, for an advisory, takes probably about a year to get an advisory from the beginning to the end, and hundreds of hours of work and research and testimony of experts that are brought in to help support the formation of that advisory.
And that includes a required 6 months of public comment period through both the draft and interim phase. So that's by federal rules. So a lot of people would say, well, you guys are kind of slow. Well, we're required by federal rules to have 6 months of public comment period that help inform these advisories, which actually works to our advantage because then the public gets to help craft these and adapt them to achieve the goal that we're hoping for.
Right. Yeah, this past council alone had more public comment received in a 2-year period than any previous council. It was really quite amazing how much feedback we got from the EMS community and how we used that feedback to craft, change, amend, and edit these advisories that were moving up through the process.
And indeed, as that sort of casual observer that I described before, I've watched you tackle some fairly meaty subjects, actually. And, you've talked about education, graduate education in EMS, a topic that's near and dear to my heart in California, ambulance patient offload time, something that, of course, we now have state legislation for, and we continue to work through. And so, obviously, those advisories certainly, I think, may have actually made it through the system and out there for those to read. But again, it's a lengthy, ongoing process that you put a lot of time and effort in, and are uncompensated for as well. I mean, you're truly volunteer members.
Yeah, 100%. We get our travel covered, obviously, and that's pretty much it. Everything else is on our own time. It's our own vacation time that we're using. The subcommittees are all our own time, and it's a lot of time. I will tell you that the members of that council put in a tremendous amount of time and work into preparing these advisories.
In recent years, then, what's been the most challenging topic you've had to deal with and then work through and then obviously bring to a successful conclusion, would you say?
I have to give Mr. David Pfeiffer a lot of credit for his advisory. That it was kind of his baby to start with. Of course, the whole committee or subcommittee, and then eventually the council helped build this. But it was on the paramedic practitioner, giving another avenue for EMS professional to gain a few more rungs on the clinical ladder, the professional growth, and also providing a mechanism for some revenue based on their clinical care and for an agency to bill on their behalf. Putting them at a level equivalent with a nurse practitioner or a physician assistant, but obviously with a much more narrowed and refined scope specific to what we do. That generated most of the public comment that we had over the last 2 years. We finalized that one last May, I believe, is when we finalized that. So for the first, roughly year of my appointment, I came in after the draft had already been created. But that got a lot of engagement with NEMSAC, we should say.
Indeed, and I certainly saw there was a line of folk waiting to express their opinions of that. But and on EMS One-Stop, of course, we also speak to folk in other countries, and we have international sort of contributors. And we've been out to the UK College of Paramedics, for example. We've spoken to them. We've had them on the show, and obviously seen what it could look like. Right. And obviously, these are some of the areas that you've been sort of advocating for and promoting internally. So that paper's published. And one of the things I should say, everybody, is all of the documents that we're talking about will be listed in the show notes as well. So we'll find them, and actually you can read them. They're still there online and available to read. I say still. I hope they're going to be there by Monday.
So actually,
but,
Rob,
we shall see.
To that point, that one was actually removed along with about 17 others after the executive orders came out in a flurry because it literally had the word equitable in there relating to the equity of care in an urban versus a rural environment. So it was removed. There are 18 of the 66 advisories that have been removed from EMS.gov. And one of the things we were planning to tackle with starting our next term was to take all of those, modify them to make them, be more compliant with the existing executive orders and get them posted back. So you will no longer be able to read that one online, as well as like EMS Agenda 2050 and some other pretty landmark documents are missing from EMS.gov right now.
Well, normally I would edit out my comment and just let this run through as if I hadn't asked that question. But I'm going to leave it in because, again, there is the assumption that all of these documents that have been crafted, have been passed, have been voted through and been accepted will still be available. And I mean, thank you for that correction. That must be personally frustrating for all of you, though.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. And I think if you could see how much work and how this council and every council prior carries out that work in a very apolitical or politically agnostic manner. I mean, no one sits around a table and decides what we're going to do based on, what the politics of it may be. We sit around a table and we make decisions based on what's in the best interest of the EMS industry and the patients that we serve. Never once has the word politics come up in an initiative that we've taken on. We don't even talk politics during our break. It is a completely apolitical environment. So, we understand that there is politics in the world, and I respect that. And of course, it's under the purview of whoever is in the front office to make some of these decisions, and I respect that. But some of these advisories are advisories such as the heat stroke advisory that talks specifically about how to manage exertional heat stroke, that had a tremendous amount of work that went into this to focus on promoting the fact that cold water immersion is the treatment of choice. And many of the textbooks don't put this as a frontline treatment, and many protocols around the country don't do that. And we had experts that came in and talked to us about climate and how there are more heat-related emergencies. That was really important in shaping this particular advisory. We had an expert physician that came in from the Corey Stringer Institute that talked specifically about heat-related emergencies and how best to change protocols to be able to save lives. And it's gone. It's down. So that is concerning to us. It hurts us because these are about real-life situations that EMS providers encounter every day, that our job is to try and educate and get information out and change the process to make it better for patients.
I'm lost for words, and that's a very unusual situation to be in, believe me. But no, wow, and because they're down, does it mean they're out? I mean, it's one of those questions of, yes, it's been pulled for amendment, but it was initially published, and so where does it stand in the in the real world, let's say?
And we still have PDF copies. Technically,
okay, well, we'll take it.
Our advisories are meant for FICEMS. That is the target audience. They go to FICEMS, and FICEMS takes those recommendations that we provide and they distribute them out to the different cabinet level departments where those actionable changes can happen. And so they existed on EMS.gov for the public eye to see like what's coming, the changes hopefully that are coming down the pipeline. Our hope for the next council, whenever that is that we can help them to, here's the original document and make those modifications. Obviously, it has to go back through the whole process from scratch now since they've been removed, unless they just magically reappear, which I don't have much faith that they will. But we will help get those back in some form or fashion through mentoring the next council as much as we're able.
So you've raised another, and we love a good acronym here on EMS One-Stop. Of course, you are the EMS Advisory Council, and then you've mentioned FICEMS, the Federal Interagency Committee on EMS, and so it's the next level up, if you want to call it that, that has a number of government departments in. So just explain for everybody. Obviously, you said you're feeding FICEMS the stuff that you're doing. Who are FICEMS?
Yeah, FICEMS, or the Federal Interagency Committee on EMS, is made up of the Department of Defense, Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Homeland Security, Federal Communications Commission, and the Department of Transportation. And those are the key members of FICEMS. And, FICEMS, what we basically do is we produce these advisories. They go to FICEMS and they get directed to, any one of the key organizations in FICEMS, or back through the Department of Transportation to be shared with other secretaries within the government. So, for instance, if there was something that came up through FICEMS that that NEMSAC produced that needed to go to the Department of Education, the Secretary of the Department of Transportation would then take that and bring that to the Secretary of Education. So it is the conduit to everything government, whether it's CMS, which we've worked with, whether it's DoD, whether it's HHS or Homeland. It's basically how all of this information flows up.
And so I guess it begs the question then, have they been dismissed? The members that sit within that committee as well? Do we know that? Or is that one of those ones that's sort of above this strata of boards and commissions, as it were?
So those are actually government employees.
Okay.
They are employed by each of their respective cabinet level departments and are appointed as part of their job duties to be the representative. I saw a lot of comments on social media that, hey, this is a great opportunity to get EMS out from under DOT. That was a huge focus, it seemed, in the last 48 hours on the comments.
Yeah.
And, we can go back to the 60s and talk about why it shouldn't have ended up in DOT. It's always chapter 1 of our EMT and paramedic textbooks of our history. And it might be good for people to go back and read chapter 1 of those textbooks of why we are under DOT. But EMS really exists across all these different departments. And there's no one department that really rules EMS, but FICEMS kind of is that department, recognizing that we touch all the cabinet level departments. So if you could make one entity within the federal government that regulates and oversees EMS, it would be FICEMS. And I think that is something that we're not taught. And, I'm a paramedic also, as well as an ER physician. Been doing this 23 years. Brenden and Rob, y'all been doing it much longer. We won't talk about how much longer, but this was not something that I learned in my initial education. And so I hear these comments and I read these comments out there, and I just want to educate people on how the sausage is made at the federal level. FICEMS is really the one that rules EMS.
And I do want to say that I think just to opine on what Dr. Morshedi said, I think as a young paramedic, and this is my 38th year now, like I looked back at it and said, what the heck are we doing in DOT? Like, how does that work? But when you get into the meat of this, to Branden's point, FICEMS is really where it's at. And we should, in my personal opinion, we should be less concerned with whose stamp might be on us and more concerned with who gives us the most attention, right? It's easy to get some attention through DOT because DOT's budget is not ginormic and isn't so large that you could get lost in the cracks. HHS is a place where you could get lost. DoD, Homeland, these are places where you could get lost based on the size of those budgets. So to me, it's really about who gives us the best attention. And we've been lucky through our relationships with the Office of EMS and GAM, Wichitanga, who is amazing and fantastic. And despite the fact that his name may be on that letter, none of us hold anything against him. He's been an amazing leader and an amazing advocate for EMS in this country. So I don't want that to get lost in the wash here.
Let me second and third that on Branden's behalf as well, that I've worked with GAM and the team there, and they are amazing folk, and we know that they are just working through their own processes now, and we look forward to seeing them back online sometime soon. Before we go any further though, let's just stop and have a quick word from our sponsor.
Lexipol empowers first responders and public servants to best meet the needs of their residents safely and responsibly. Serving more than 2 million public safety and government professionals in over 8,000 agencies and municipalities, Lexipol offers a range of solutions that includes policies, training, behavioral health resources, news and analysis, and grant assistance services for law enforcement, fire and rescue, EMS, local government, and other agencies dedicated to public safety. To learn more, visit lexipol.com. That's LEXIPOL.com.
And we're back. As always, that was the voice of Jim Dudley, who presents Policing Matters over on Police One. Please take a second if you want to hear what else is going on in the public safety world to listen to Police One and Policing Matters. They have some amazing guests and a range of topics around public safety. Also, please make sure that you like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast or your vodcast from. Don't forget, we're not only on wherever you get your podcast from, whatever platform, Apple, etc. We're also on YouTube, so you can hear us as well as see us. And certainly for this edition of EMS One-Stop, we have some graphics and charts of the various pieces of work and the individual members even of the NEMSAC organization or the NEMSAC committee. I'm talking to Dr. Brenden Morshedi and to Brenden Hayden, and so far we've covered really pretty much drilled down into, by way of an explainer, what is NEMSAC. We now know, of course, who they were reporting to. We now know what that organization does with the information that's provided, and obviously we've heard about just the amount of work that goes into being a committee member and obviously producing these advisories. And so hopefully, that we've explained that. And I have to say that thank you both to Brenden and to Brenden, great having similar names, for jumping on so quickly. And obviously, again, the thing I wanted to do was, you mentioned this already, Brenden, that there's a lot of social media. There's a lot of, sort of questions and doubt and information going out there. And what I wanted to do was to create an explainer to ask you guys some direct questions and obviously to, help us put the record straight, if you like, and get us back on track. So, elephant in the room time, you are both the immediate to-be chairman, the immediate past chairman, and it's all come to a grinding halt because you have, depending on where you read and what you read, you've been fired, you've been dismissed. What happened? And how do you feel about it?
We were put on hold or on pause, technically. Not just NEMSAC, all federal advisory councils were put on hold not long after the inauguration. We thought it was just while they kind of do evaluate and reset, part of the improved efficiency efforts. Our charter was set to expire in April anyway, and so we knew there was going to be a delay with that. We heard that the charter was renewed, and so we felt a bit eager of our chances of starting to meet again. And then we got word just a couple of weeks ago that it's looking kind of grim for our future. And so we kind of had a bit of a warning that this was coming. I can't say that any of us are surprised. We did have some conversations with some of the other members who will be lifelong friends at this point. But I think we were all disappointed. A lot of the work that we had put into this, the things that were not able to be finalized, we needed one more meeting in February to wrap up this charter and put the bow and final wrap up on at least 6 more advisories. It was just it was heartache. All the work, hundreds of hours that went into trying to improve the EMS profession, the industry, just came to a grinding halt. Disappointment probably be the word I would use.
Yeah, I think that's a really good word. I had this picture in my head of our transition of leadership, of me handing you the gavel and looking forward to the work that you and the new council, and I don't want to forget Mike Tagman, who was the incoming vice chair, and Mike is a legendary EMS leader and thought leader for the industry. I was very excited, myself and Tom Arkins, who was the vice chair of the council under me. We were very excited about that transition, and we were so excited because Brenden is an amazing leader and Mike is an amazing leader. And if we thought Tom and I did some good stuff with the group that we had, we were so looking forward to what Brenden and Mike were going to do. And disappointment's a good word, right? Because for us, this became our life's work. For me, it's been 4 years. Watching that stop in January was concerning, and then watching essentially it terminate for this next class was really, really disappointing.
I certainly know that Dr. Brenden Morshedi is still going to be around to propel us into EMS 2050 for a long time to come. And notice I didn't say you or I Brenden. But Brenden, you are our future, and this is just a temporary setback for you, sir. I do believe, and so you're going to keep leading the charge. One assumes that all of the work that you've had underway isn't going to be taken out into the yard, put in the dumpster, and set fire to. Right? It's going to be preserved and curated until somebody can come in and pick it up and obviously vote to carry on or not. Please tell me that is so.
So yeah, absolutely. If you could see the folder that I have on my desktop titled NEMSAC, I have every advisory proposal. I have every advisory that's in research, draft, and interim phase, multiple versions and edits. I've got a sticky note on my desktop with about 12 different ideas for future advisories. You can go back and watch any of the minutes from videos or minutes from the previous meetings. And when I would raise my hand to be acknowledged when it came to new advisories, there was a bit of a sigh coming from the chair seat because I was going to put the council to work. So I've got all these things. And I don't know who's going to be the next EMS physician in my seat, but I will happily hand them all these ideas as a civilian, it seems, or maybe I get to reapply. I don't know. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, one thing I do want to note, though, is there is so much research that goes into these. So any of the ones that are in research today that haven't been conceived yet, that are actually moving through the process, the existing council, as it stood last week, had all of that testimony research data in order to formulate these advisories. So a new group coming in, you can just imagine how difficult it is for one researcher to take someone else's researcher's work and try and run with it. It's not that it can't be done. It just is really complex in doing that. And I do get concerned about some of the advisories that were in development getting dropped. Just because there isn't the legacy information and experience to understand why that was being built or the testimony that was given in order to support it.
So I guess we've got to watch this space very closely. We've got to externally kind of police those that are coming in and encourage them in any which way we can to sort of, do pick up the reins, as it were. And actually that kind of leads me into my sort of next point. And I'd sort of started to talk about this in part one, Brenden, but again, I'm the association guy. You're the NEMSAC people. I think we both have a partnering role or an equal and opposite role, both on the inside of government and on the external side of government and legislation, to work together. And perhaps this sort of leads on to the question is, how can we keep things moving right now?
Most of us that sat on NEMSAC, we are all part of a lot of these associations as well with our sectors we come from. And so we recognize that process on the other side as part of the kind of peripheral sphere of influence, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Our target audience being FICEMS and our recommendations for how to influence this change still can happen. It's just now going to happen through a different avenue. I would love to work with the National Association of EMS Physicians, which I'm a part of, to try and implement some of these changes. You guys, the American Ambulance Association and AIMHI, I mean, in AEMT, we all are part of these groups that can help influence this profession. We had, just for context, we had 14 advisories that were in the hopper at various stages of development that will not be finalized. All 14 had anywhere from, maybe 5 to a couple dozen recommendations, depending on what their issue they were trying to address. And our progress has been exponentially increasing over the last 2 years. 25% of the entire NEMSAC's history of work came in the last 2 years. So 18, going on 19 years of history with NEMSAC, and a quarter of the work came in the last 2 years. And this year, 2025, I'm looking at our projection here. We were going to have a record number of advisories finalized and produced. The work was coming fast and furious. We still have it. I plan to go talk to the alphabet soup associations to make some change happen, because I don't think we're going to have a NEMSAC anytime soon to make this change happen at the executive branch level.
Well,
And I think,
allow me to sort of, help out with that. Yeah, clearly, if you can't turn it into policy on the inside, let's try and legislate it into law on the outside. And so, yeah, hand over the files, Brenden. Hand them over.
Okay.
yeah, and I think just listening to that in totality, there's been this assertion that NEMSAC had been stagnant, that as a federal advisory council wasn't doing anything, and that could not be any further from the truth. In fact, one of the things I am the most proud of in my last 2 years and in totality the 4 years is all of the work that we took on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it became another full-time job for all of us. And you're talking about 25 people, doctors, nurses, paramedics, educators, highway people, a variety of different folks that have full-time jobs and made NEMSAC its another full-time job and a full-time commitment in moving this stuff forward.
I don't mind telling you that, and again, for those watching, I'm going to put up the image of the members. There are some esteemed colleagues of those 25. This lot are taking names and kicking butts. And so, yes, you're right, and you're getting up to a level of momentum that's going to have to be restarted. As we sort of get close to the end of this, what you're obviously proud of everything that you've done, but if I asked you both for sort of that one thing that's really made the difference to you, and you think it's going to make the difference to the industry, what's the one thing that you think NEMSAC has done while you've been serving within it? The one item, the one advisory, the one briefing, etc.
Go ahead, Mr. Chair.
I mean, there really are so many. I'm going to take one that goes back a couple terms, and I'm going to give the nod to the previous vice chair of the council, a gentleman by the name of Jonathan Washko, who is a legendary EMS leader in this industry. And he conceived, and I was a new NEMSAC member, he conceived something called the EMS Star of Rights. And the EMS Star of Rights was basically a steering document based on each point of the Star of Life that talked about what EMS should be. And it covered things that are important to us, like resiliency, like an essential service, like well-funded. And if anyone has the time, you should go back and read that, because it checks all the boxes of what every single EMT, first responder, advanced EMT and paramedic EMS physician has been saying from the beginning of time on what EMS should be. So that's probably the one I'm the most proud of, because I did get into the nitty-gritty on that as a subcommittee member and work on that personally.
So agree, Washko, legend, Star of Rights. If we can find it and it's not been redacted, we'll put it in the show notes. So thank you.
It is gone.
Oh, but however, we do know Mr. Washko, and I'm sure we can recover it somehow.
He has it.
We have
There we go.
resources.
John, if you're listening, mate, we want your copy. Okay, Brenden, over to you.
For me, I poured a lot of heart and soul into 2 different advisories during my term. One was on improving bidirectional data sharing with getting tied medical records and hospital outcomes. Outcomes is such a big gap for EMS to be able to feed back into recognizing the care we provide and how we can improve and seeing what happens to our patient. It gives us that ownership of patient care. It's what allows us to become that healthcare professional. So I put a lot of work into to that one, which is not. It was going to be finalized in February, so that one is now stuck in purgatory. The second one we talked about EMS wall times a little bit ago, and I was able to get the quicker letter out. The letter has a different process to follow, so we got that letter out with just a few quick targeted recommendations. Following on the heels of that was a much more robust advisory with more than a dozen recommendations to finally affect change. And this would have been a game changer in our industry with hospital accountability and wall times and ED boarding. And it opened up a lot of conversation. And again, that one is now on hold. And those recommendations will not see the light of day anytime soon. Those are the 2. And then just from a 30,000 foot view, kind of the biggest lesson I'm taking away from this is how powerful our EMS voice can be when it's a unified voice. You've got 25 different sectors represented that all come together with the focus on the EMS professional, the industry, the workforce, the patient care, the community preparedness. all those facets combined, the power of a unified EMS voice no longer existing in silos. And all these alphabet soup organizations going forward can take that idea, which they have been, and I think it's becoming a lot more common now, where their voice is unified. I think we're going to make some pretty significant change in ways we haven't before.
Excellent. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you would have seen I've already put the sort of graphic up of the current members. And the key thing is that each individual person represents an individual sector or area or discipline within emergency medical services. And that's everything from, emergency medical physicians through to state EMS officials, through to legislators. And so it's not just one group of one interest. It's actually a representative from across the entire gambit of EMS 911. Everybody's involved in this. 911 dispatchers, etc. And so you have a well-rounded grouping. It's not just one, dare I say, party, or another. It's actually everybody representing the industry, and I think that was absolutely key as well. I'm going to come back to you, Brenden, for a question to you, as Brenda and I have established that we are relatively senior in this profession. But what's the one thing that you've learnt in coming in to do this, and obviously about to be the chairman, and how will you take that away and apply it to your future?
As a baby EMT turned paramedic, I had no idea how the sausage was made. I would say, we need to be paid more. Or, how come we're under DOT? And just kind of all these statements that you hear the average EMS clinician making. And being a part of this, learning how the process is laid out for you to have an idea and turn that into change. That was going to be my plan, to just go out and spread the word from the mountaintops. Like, hey guys, let's stop complaining and let me teach you the process for how to actually make change happen. I've been making the lecture circuit and doing keynotes and basically spreading that message, empowering our profession to advocate for ourselves. It does no good to just complain about, we don't have this, we can't have that. It's time to stop complaining, unify our voice, learn the process, and make change happen to improve our profession for ourselves.
And that was amazing, and also the perfect teaser for this show. So thank you. So before we go, I always ask this question, and is there anything I've forgotten to ask you, or anything else that you need to tell us? And we'll go to you first, Brenden.
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective is that regardless of how our tenure has ended with NEMSAC, it has been the privilege of a lifetime for me, and a very humbling experience to sit at a table with 24 like-minded individuals who are completely committed to advancing an industry that I've dedicated my life to. I would encourage everyone to go on and read the profiles of the current NEMSAC members, as long as that's still up there, because I think you will understand what I mean by saying these are leaders in our industry. And for all of the listeners out there, you can be that same leader. The leadership comes from the ground up in EMS, and it's so important for you, for those of you who are out there who are thinking of getting into a NEMSAC or a leadership position in any of the alphabet soup organizations, or just your own organization, to really take the time to develop your skills, to do the research, to look at the science, and allow that to guide you, because EMS needs strong leaders, and that's how we're going to get ahead. And that's my 2 cents, and certainly my learning lesson in all of this.
Absolutely masterful, Brenden. Thank you very much. Dr. Morshedi, you appear to have the last word. Over to you.
Yeah, the biggest takeaway I have from this is learning the power of the influence that you can have as a professional to be able to advocate for yourself, your profession, your patients, anything that you want. You learn the process and partner with other like-minded people. Surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. You never want to be the smartest one in the room. And just go out there and actually make change happen. As long as you keep your compass, your North Star being the overall improvement of the focus on the patient, the professionals that are out there doing the work every day, you can't go wrong when that's your focus.
Amazing. Thank you both very much indeed. And obviously, this is a story that's set to continue. We hope that the federal government will eventually go out to the Federal Register, will identify that it's time to start selecting a new NEMSAC, and we'll get on with it. Obviously, we have no idea of that timescale. We certainly didn't want to go and bug our friends in NHTSA today. Obviously, they've got probably more than enough to do themselves, but obviously we're going to watch what's going to happen next. But on behalf of the EMS nation, thank you both, and indeed the other 23 of you, for doing what you've done, because you've led with dignity, with perseverance, with sincerity, and obviously with results. And some of those won't see the light of day, hopefully just yet, but eventually will. So thank you so much for what you've done, and of course what you continue to do.
Thank you, Rob.
So that was Dr. Morshedi and Brenden. Branden and Brenden, what a fantastic set of guests we've had today, and indeed exceptionally dignified. They were and are leading the way. You've learnt all about NEMSAC, what it is, well, what it was, who it reports to, the initiatives and sheer work that's been going on there. Hopefully we've put some of the sort of rumours or conjecture to bed as well, and so hopefully we've achieved that. So this was another edition of EMS One-Stop. Again, make sure that you like and subscribe. So thank you to my guests, and also see you later. Take care, and bye for now.